Hi, welcome to the Pursuit 365 podcast. My name is Shelly Smee, and I am the presenter of the Real Estate and Finance Fridays. Today, our guest is Maria Fielder. She is an equity member of the East Van co-housing community, and they are a forming co-housing group. Maria, can you please explain to us what brought you to co-housing in the first place and how you became involved?
Of course. So I came across co-housing around 3 years ago on a run with a friend. We were talking about co-housing and, about housing in general, and how sometimes it was quite difficult to have that sense of community in the city. And he mentioned Vancouver co-housing, about this community that seemed to know their neighbors, they had shared resources, and it intrigued me. So I did some more research and discovered what co-housing was and that it aligned with my values. So that was when I really started to look for co-housing opportunities.
Thank you. So, let's. I had Margaret Critchley, who is very knowledgeable on co-housing and creating community, on the program last week. But I think it's really important for people to understand, and what I'm actually referring to co-housing to other realtors who actually don't understand what it is either, is that it's strata with soul. And it is a higher level of engagement and community than you might normally find in your average strata building. And it also provides people the opportunity to find other like-minded people and
Mm.
plan a community from the ground up. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are in your journey with planning your community, and a little bit about what that process has
Of
been
course.
like for you so far?
Yeah, definitely. So, East Van Co-housing started in January 2023. I'm not sure if folks know, but there are, I think, around now 10 completed co-housing communities in the Lower Mainland. And apart from a few units, they're all full. And people, they don't come, on sale super often because often people are very happy and tend to live there for quite a long time, um, as you may know. And
Yes.
so there's
Yes.
yeah, so there's hundreds of people on the interested list for each of the existing communities, and there was a piece of land found in East Van on Duke Street near 33rd and Kingsway. And so an email was sent out to people on the interested list for other communities announcing that they're looking to start a new co housing community in East Van. And so that's how I initially got involved just over a year ago. And it's been, an adventure since then. We've grown to 15 households, from individuals, couples, young families, families with grown kids, retirees, seniors, etc. And we've gone through various different workshops to help establish our values as a community, the spaces and amenities that are important to us based on those values, and then also some ideas around what we would like our future units to look like. So, working with quite a few different professionals in that process. So, we're still, earlier days, but lots of decisions have been made already. And we're looking to close on our land in the coming months. So, that would mean we would have that space secured and could continue with the process.
That is so exciting. So, when we were offline getting ready for this interview, you did mention that you were an equity member. Can I assume, or can we explain to our audience that would mean that you've already made a bit of an investment through a monetary investment into the project.
That is correct. Something that's, a big difference between co-housing and, say, regular housing is that the future residents essentially fund, design, and help build really their future community. We are co-developers, and so we are putting the money in ourselves. Essentially, it's a deposit towards our future home, but we
Right.
put it down slightly earlier.
So instead of going into a pre-sale um, office or a pre-sale center where you've got your dioramas and your floor plans and all the flashy flash that the developers have done in advance, your group is able to work with the architect and the developers to help form what you want your community to look like, I guess, still within the bounds of what's um, allowed for zoning and the amount of land that's available. How many total households will your project have, or has that been determined yet?
We're likely looking in the low 30s to 40 range. Um, Part of the beauty is that because our future building is built around our own residents, there is some flexibility depending on what our members need. So we've got a rough idea of the studios 1, 2, and 3 beds, but if we did have, say, quite a few families joined, then maybe we would increase the number of 3 beds to accommodate those households and perhaps reduce the number of 2 beds that we had. You would never have that opportunity with a regular developer, and you would never have the opportunity to have a say in the design of the building, materials, the values that you're representing, or have the opportunity to meet your neighbors in advance. So it's quite a different experience.
I would say so. Having myself purchased in a co-housing community coming up on 3 years almost exactly, I and it being one of the original ones were Cranberry Commons in Burnaby, and there are still, I believe, 8 households, then original households of the forming community. Um, it did take a bit of
Mm.
adjusting for me to understand all of the process driven democratic principles for having meetings and making decisions. And I have to say, it's very refreshing because of the fact that many of the founding families are still here. It's kind of like being part of a big functionally not dysfunctional all the time, but you know, in community there can be conflict. In community there can be disagreements. When you talk about the workshops that your group has been through, is that addressed early on in the process so that people have a framework to come together and resolve differences of opinions?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we definitely do talk about decision-making processes because that's really important, particularly as you start with a small group and then you grow as other households join. And what we worked on as a group was really deciding what our values were as a group, and we had agreement on those. And so once we come up with, what's important to us, then that helped to guide a lot of the decisions that we then made. We also are divided into different committees. So there are committees that are responsible for different areas of the project. For example, I'm in marketing and membership. There's finance and legal, development, representation and inclusivity, and there's more. But we also then delegate responsibility. And because we've built relationships of trust, we also then trust those committees to take responsibility and ownership for their tasks, because there's so many things to do and there's a lot of us. So in order to continuously progress, we need to do that. But we also have regular meetings to feed back to the group. And currently we are using, generally we're using consensus decision making. So if we can't come to an agreement, we'll do a 70% in favor in order for something to successfully go through. But longer term, we are talking about using sociocracy, which is another type of decision making quite common in co-housing, but it's a little bit early on for
Mhm.
us to introduce that process.
That is a very good point. So when we're talking about purpose driven community and values driven
Mm-hmm.
community, I think, for a lot of people who've maybe not grown up with that kind of language, it can be a little bit daunting to really grasp your head about being all in with that. Do you have a
Mm-hmm.
questionnaire or a process in your membership intake that helps people to realize or understand if they have the right values or the aligned, if they're in alignment with fitting into the
Mm-hmm.
community or being a part of a process? Um, how do you tell people who maybe think they want to do it because they're desperate for housing? Like, that is such a conversation everywhere. Um, but do they understand what kind of a commitment it's going to be? As the membership and marketing person, how do you guide people to an understanding of what their level of commitment will need to be to help move the community towards completion?
Sure. There's quite a lot to unpack in what you just said, so I'll try to be succinct. Um, but I think it's definitely quite different for us in a forming community compared to buying into an existing co-housing. Because existing co-housing, you already have all those policies, you've got structures, and essentially somebody's just buying a unit the same as they would buy a unit in a regular condo building. But things are set up essentially. In our case, because we don't yet have a physical building, we very much have a pretty extended onboarding process where we offer virtual info sessions online for people to learn about the project, to see some of the members, ask questions, see some of the values that we have and the way that we've incorporated that into the building. Another thing that we have are socials. So we very actively encourage interested people to come and meet us in person. Once we've given them the basic information and they're still interested, we invite them to come in, whether that's have some drinks and food or whether we do a walking tour. So they actually get to meet existing members in person, because at the end of the day, it needs to be a fit on, like, it needs to be comfortable and they need to feel safe and welcome. Really, we want people that want to be in our community. So, as much as we need more members to have the financial strength to continue forward with the project and build an apartment building in Vancouver, which, as you know, is very difficult and expensive, we also want members that really feel committed and dedicated to stay in it for the long haul. We're not trying to pressure people that will join, then realize later that it's not for them and back out, because then actually it's worse on both ends. So we try to provide a mixture of online and in-person opportunities for people to connect and just get a sense of who we are, and then they can see maybe who they connect with. And we also, within the marketing and membership committee, there's me and several others, we will be buddies to new people. So we'll maybe have one on one phone calls or meet with them for coffee to address the questions that they have. So you have lots of opportunities in different ways to kind of get a sense of who we are. And we do have a charter if somebody's joining, which they can read in advance. So typically, we would say 8 hours per month is the expectation that we currently have for members, because we've got quite a lot of work to do compared
Hmm.
to an established community, you know, that's further down the line and is maybe more focused on maintenance. We're a lot earlier, so we've got lots to keep us busy.
Right. So within the context of that, do you look for any particular skill sets? Like, do you find that, people who are really interested in say, ecology or gardening or bees or, something like that, those might be the people that want to have a say in landscaping, or somebody who's maybe an
Mm-hmm.
architect might actually have always dreamed of having a part in designing a building. Like, do you find that you're attracting people who not only want to know who their neighbors are going to be when they, you know, move in, but that they have a sort of a joiner, I guess I would say, personality type, or
Mm. Yeah. Again, a few different things I'll address. So I would say that as a community, we are not actively looking for like a certain type of person or somebody that has a specific skill set. Like we really want it to be a welcoming and inclusive community, or as inclusive as we can be, recognizing that affordability and cost is a major factor that does prevent many people from joining. Um, that's a whole other conversation. But I guess my point being that we really, it's the community values. You know, people that want
right.
to live in an intentional community, they want to know their neighbors. And there's a couple of other things that are key factors. You know, we're a multi generational community. So it's not an adults only building, it is pet friendly. So if people don't like pets, then maybe it's not for them. We have a location in East Vancouver, so that's another factor for folks if that aligns with where they would want to live. And then the two other really key things, which end up being kind of natural ways that people either continue to be interested and join or don't, are to do with the time and the timeline and the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So can you wait until 2027 to move into your future unit? Or is that too long, too short? And financially, can you afford to be involved in the project? So, honestly, the
Right.
combination between the three things, it's a trifecta. And in order to be involved in the community, you need to meet all three. Many people
Right.
meet two, but perhaps not the third. So, it's quite, um, a unique combination. Does that
I'm
make
gonna go
sense?
there. I'm gonna go there, and people are gonna want to know. Well, is this, if I've pre-qualified for a mortgage today and it's not finishing until 2027, I think you said 2027. It just
Mm-hmm.
seems so weird for me to say dates that far in the future. You're getting old when that sounds like way in the future. But what type of expectation should people have to become an equity member as far as finances go?
Sure. So, I guess I'll briefly address the question about timing. For those that are involved in development in Vancouver, they will know that things do not necessarily move very quickly. And even if you look at a similar commercial development project, you're typically looking in the 3 to 5 year range
Yes,
to build a similar size building. So it's not necessarily that we're looking to be slower. This is just the reality of the environment that we're in.
definitely.
The Yeah. The second thing when it comes to the finance, to become an equity member of the group, initially people are asked to put in a $25,000 commitment. And then that would then increase to 10 to 15% of their unit when we close on the land. Now, bear in mind, this is cumulative. And so also this money is specifically going towards the deposit of your future home. And then down the line, we will get we'll get a loan for our land. Then later, when we start construction, we'll get a loan for construction. Members may need to put in a little bit more at this point, again, because we need to have equity to get the loans. But again, the money that you're putting down now is less that you then need to get for a mortgage down the line. And another big thing is we're building at cost. Like, we're not trying to make a profit.
There's
So
no
the big
built-in
difference,
marketing costs or lift or any of the developer add-ons that are typically built into the cost of a pre-sale condo launch.
yeah, exactly. Whether that's that 15-ish% that they would normally make, we are the existing members are putting in, time, and we call it sweat equity. We're putting in our
Mhm.
time in order to save ourselves and our future neighbors money. So it's in our own interest. So we're definitely motivated to do that. And of course, we do hire in when we don't have the skill set ourselves and do everything to code with the city, of course. But the other thing I would say is that essentially we are going to be buying our future units, but we actually have a say in the design and a say in the materials and maybe how environmentally friendly they are. Being more climate resilient or preparing for the future when there are going to be more forest fires, more extreme temperatures. You would never get that opportunity in a regular development, and the quality is likely going to be higher in ours because we're more interested in our homes being better quality longer term. Many new condo buildings, stuff starts to break within a couple of years because developers don't care about the quality, right? They're trying to build a building and make as much profit. We're not trying to do that.
I would say there's definitely a wide range between builders and developers for quality. It's always interesting to me when I take clients to their initial walkthrough right before completion of how many pieces of green tape go up in the unit of what we call the deficiency walkthrough list. So that's another advantage for being boots on the ground for all of the steps of construction. You have a lot of oversight over how things are being done.
Yeah, and to add to that, actually, even within our group, we do have people who are professionals in the development and the construction space. So when we do have people with skill sets like that, we very much leverage, to make sure that we are being given a good deal, or if they have contacts in the industry, we can then leverage that as a group. So it's another way we save money and just make sure that as a smaller community group, we're not being taken advantage of by, corporations who at the end of the day are trying to make a profit.
That sounds like a triple bottom line type of way to do things. So you have
Yeah.
control over your materials, over how the building's going to look, over certain cost factors as far as ensuring that things are done in an ethical and best practices point of view. What
Hmm.
are some of what are some of the amenities that your group has identified that are important for um, the community?
Yeah, great question. And we did have a workshop specifically dedicated to the common space or the amenities. So perhaps for those who aren't familiar, co-housing tends to have extensive common space or amenities. The units themselves tend to be slightly smaller, but this is because you have so much additional space that you can use. In our case, we're going to have a common house, which will have a shared kitchen and shared dining area. So, in addition to your own kitchen and dining area that you have in your own regular condo, you have the option that if you would like to join some communal meals each week, you can do that. You can show up, you can eat, and then you just get billed per month, the number of meals that you've attended. I've attended quite a few of these meals in existing co housing communities, and it's just a great way to catch up with neighbors. You end up making plans for the evening, or maybe the parents are scheduling who's going to take the kids to school next week because they take each other's kids, or they arrange play dates. Some of the seniors talking about their plans for the gardens, or somebody's looking after somebody's dog while they go on vacation. It just facilitates all of that very organic interaction. And
Mm-hmm.
then, in addition to that, we'll be having a guest room, co working space, a kids' play room. So kids can go and play. Parents or adults can have a glass of wine, but still keep an eye on them. And then like a rooftop garden area with planters, space for some outdoor kind of drying, shared laundry, as well as the option, of course, to have your own in-suite laundry. Um, and then also storage, bike rooms, and yeah, the list goes on, but those are the top ones that I would highlight.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciate about our common house is when the original families were forming, there were a lot of young children here, and the playroom at the back of the common house is. We have a new family now with a younger child. So right now we have three families with kids under 10, and that's so much fun.
Mm,
They all get along great. Um, but in our common house,
yeah.
we have two commercial um, style stoves and a commercial dishwasher. And now that
Mm-hmm.
we're pretty much out of the COVID problems of being together in a community, our community meal nights are Mondays. And we do it as a potluck now, but we have been talking about going back to, I guess, pre COVID before I lived here. They would have, the chef for the night kind of thing. So two or three people would get together and plan and make the meal, and then everybody else would
Mm-hmm.
join, sort of took turns doing it. But I'm finding that our potluck meals are always very interesting, and somehow, just by sheer luck, there doesn't seem to be a duplicate of anything usually, but maybe salads. Now that we're out of the
Yeah.
freezing cold temperatures, there's a few less, starchy vegetables and a few more salads coming in. But it's
Yeah.
different communities have different ways of organizing their shared spaces and their shared activities. Um, One of the
Yeah. And
things
I
we
think
also,
that
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think also it's a way that with different values, it's another way that they can be expressed through the food or the socialization. Like we have quite an international um, community. I mean, I don't know if you can tell I'm British. I've been in Vancouver the last 6 years. My partner is Spanish. We also have Germans, South Africans, Americans. We have a mixture of people in the group. So, also just
Yes,
through food, people can introduce their cultures or sometimes also different languages, which adds a wealth to the community as well.
excellent. Yes, we have a diverse community here as well, and it's always really, I don't know, I try to make it to the community meals. It's not mandatory, but if you don't, it's sort of like
Mm,
you really want to go, but you've got home late and you don't have anything. You can always find something in your cupboards to make something that somebody will like. And I think last week there were a couple. There was a Vietnamese dish and there was a German dish as well. So
mm,
we have in our smaller community, we're only 22 households.
hmm
We have quite a lot of diversity as well. So it's now something that I've become quite passionate about as a realtor and longtime, you know, advocate for. trying to help people find their homes, and that's my job. But this is not a co-op, and I'm sure when people view Margaret's session, she's going to take a deep dive into the history of co-housing in the world and in Canada. But this is strata. So just so everybody's understands, this is a strata-based community. It is run according to the Strata Property Act. But in most cases, these stratas are either self-managed. I know a couple of the co-housing communities just have a strata management company for doing their financials because for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, I don't know, I do not want to be treasurer. But I
Yeah.
think people get the misconception that it's a co-op, and it's not a co-op. It's a strata
No,
with
it is, and we
community
do get
value.
asked about. Mm-hmm. So we do get asked about the strata fees and things like that, and we're still too early in our process to know exactly what they're going to be. Of course, it depends on the amenities that you have, but from all of the co-housing communities that I know, particularly the newer builds, their strata fees are substantially lower than comparable condos, say, in the area, particularly for the amenities that they have. Sometimes because you can leverage things like getting internet together as a building. So everybody pays less than $10 per unit for their internet. Or maybe they do Costco shops and will go and buy, 300 eggs for the building, or shared cars. And just, I feel like although it the cost of building in Vancouver is so expensive that it means that co-housing communities are often similar to market price, just because that's how much it costs us to build. A lot of the money saving comes longer term, where you can leverage the collective power of the group in bills month to month. Also, the sharing of resources. Like maybe you don't actually need your own car, but you can share a car with various other people in the communities, or you can borrow people's kayaks or skis, and the clothes get passed on from one family to another family. When somebody's sick, you don't need to necessarily bring in a carer because maybe the community can help support that member that is unwell or is, aging. Um, so there's a lot of savings or benefits that I think aren't necessarily as tangible or obvious at the start, but you see that when you talk to people that live in co-housing.
I think that is something that most people are grappling with in a lot of ways, especially if you've emigrated or moved and your family
Mm-hmm.
isn't around or you don't have
Yeah,
access to some other support networks. Having that sense
yeah,
of community, I have found really, really nice, right? I
yeah.
actually know
It
all of
attracted
my
us.
neighbors, and it's you walk in the door and people say hello, and it's not like having lived in any other strata that I've lived in before. um and I find that that's a benefit I don't think people really understand until they start to learn about the communities and start attending the events, which I think is going to be a great segue for us signing off for today. If people want to get a hold of
Mm-hmm.
you, we'll have some links to some things at the bottom of the page here on our YouTube channel. But if people do want to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to reach out?
Sure. So we do have our website with all of the information about the project, which is www.eastvancohousing.ca. And if you wanted to email us directly, you can email us at social@eastvancohousing.ca. And we use the same name on Facebook and Instagram, so you can follow on the various channels. But if you do email us, somebody from the marketing and membership committee, like myself or some of the other team members, will get back to you and help you with any questions you have. Or you can attend some of the events that we have up, which are on our website as well.
That is amazing. thank you so much, Maria, for joining me today and helping our viewers understand about, I think, what's going to become a much more popular model for living as time goes on. And I hope that this also helps people to join your community because you're at a stage now where people who join actually can really make a difference.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you having me on the show, Shelley. And yeah, co-housing is growing, and it's not that often you get the opportunity to be part of a community because once they fill up, they stay full. So yeah, we're excited
Yes,
for what's ahead.
it is difficult. They often do not come on the market very often because a lot of the times they're sold internally as well. So if you want to get on a
Exactly.
list, make sure you sign up and go to either the Canadian Co-housing website and or any of the websites that you will find for East Van Co-housing. And if you're not in Vancouver, definitely check out the Canadian Co-housing Network website, as there are communities forming all over Canada and actually all over the world. With that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for joining the Real Estate and Finance Fridays podcast with myself, Shelly Smee, as your host. And we hope to see you again. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
And